The sea was black that night, black as the void between the stars. Its waves rose and fell with the slow, heavy breath of some vast beast slumbering beneath the surface, and the wind carried the smell of salt and blood. Kaelen Bjornsson stood at the prow of his ship, the Stormfang, his cloak whipping about him, his hand tight on the haft of his axe. His eyes burned with the fire of a man who had lost too much and who swore by all the gods that he would never lose again. Behind him, his warriors lay silent, their faces pale in the moonlight. They had returned from raid and ruin, but the cost had been greater than gold could ever mend. The village they had struck had yielded silver and thralls. Aye, but Kaelen's younger brother, Torvald, lay beneath the waves, slain by an arrow through the throat. His body had been given to the sea, and Kaelen had sung the death song with a voice that trembled like a breaking sword. Torvald had been the last of his blood, father dead in battle against the Skaalen raiders, mother gone to the sickness winters ago, his sister taken by fever as a child. Now only Kaelen remained, and with Torvald's death, the fire within him twisted into something harder, sharper, unyielding. When they returned to their fjord, the longhouse of the Bjorn clan stood dark. Only a handful of people remained. The rest, slain in raids, carried off as thralls, scattered to other clans. The Bjorn clan, once proud, was dying, its fire reduced to embers. Kaelen entered the hall, his boots striking against the worn timbers. The carved beams loomed above him, painted once with dragons, but now faded with age and smoke. The benches were half empty, the hearth crackled with only a thin flame. Old men sat hunched, children clung to their mothers, and the warriors who remained were weary and broken. Kaelen threw down the silver he had taken, the spoils of the raid, the price of his brother's life. The clatter of the metal echoed through the hall. "Here," he said, his voice low but hard. "Take it. Eat, drink, live another season." No one cheered. No one lifted their voice in joy. For what was silver to the dead? That night, Kaelen sat alone at the hearth, staring into the flames. His hands trembled, though not with fear. Rage burned in his blood, but beneath it, deeper still, was grief, a grief so sharp it felt like ice in his chest. He looked up to the beams above, where the carvings of dragons twined in endless knots. Once, his people had believed the Bjorn clan was blessed by dragon fire, chosen by the gods to rule the seas. But that fire had faded, and now they were little more than prey for stronger clans. "No more," Kaelen whispered, his eyes narrowing. "I will not watch us die by inches. If the gods will not grant us fire, then I will take it. I will not be a forgotten son of a broken clan. I will be more. I will be king, dragon king." The words rang in the hall, though no one else heard. The next day, Kaelen went to the seeress who lived at the edge of the fjord. She was old as the hills, her eyes clouded, her hair white as bone. She greeted him not with surprise, but with the slow smile of one who had been waiting. "You seek more than silver," she rasped, her voice like wind through dead reeds. "You seek fire." Kaelen dropped to one knee, his hands fisted. "I seek power. Enough to raise my clan from ash. Enough to bind the world in my hand. Tell me where I can find it." The seeress reached into the fire, and the flames curled around her fingers without burning them. She drew out a coal that glowed red and set it in a bowl before him. From the coal rose smoke that twisted into the shape of wings. "There is a path," she whispered, "but it is a path of blood. To become Dragon King, you must claim the fire of the world serpent's brood, the last of the ancient wyrms that dwell in Jotunheim. Its heart burns with the power of creation and destruction. Take it, and the fire will be yours. But beware, Kaelen Bjornsson. The price is all you love." Kaelen's breath caught in his chest. He thought of Torvald, of the Bjorn clan, of the faces of his people, hungry, broken, fading. He clenched his fists tighter. "I have nothing left to lose," he said. The seeress's blind eyes seemed to pierce him all the same. "So you believe, but the Norns weave deeper than you know." That night, Kaelen told no one of what the seeress had said. He stood once more at the prow of the Stormfang, the sea stretching endless before him. His warriors muttered of home, of rebuilding, but Kaelen's heart was set on fire and wyrm blood. The wind carried the raven's cry across the water. Kaelen lifted his eyes to it and whispered, "Watch me." The ravens circled once, its wings black against the stars, before vanishing into the night. And Kaelen set his course toward destiny. The sea stretched endless and merciless as Kaelen Bjornsson guided the Stormfang northward, past the fjords of men and into waters where even seasoned sailors whispered of curses. His warriors obeyed him because he was strong, because his axe was swift and his eyes burned with a fire that made them believe, if only for a moment, that the Bjorn clan might yet rise again. But whispers spread at night around the low fires, whispers of madness, of doom, of a man who sought to challenge the gods themselves. Kaelen did not hear them, or if he did not care. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, where storms gathered and the sea boiled like a cauldron of the Aesir. Before the journey began, he had chosen his companions carefully. There was Skari One-Eye, a scarred berserker who had once fought under Harald Fairhair himself, but had been cast out for killing his own Jarl in a drunken rage. There was Freyja Skjaldmey, a shield maiden of iron will, whose blade was as quick as her voice was sharp. There was young Asmund, barely grown to manhood, eager to prove himself though his hands still shook when blood spattered his face. And there were others, outcasts, broken men, those with nothing left to lose but everything to gain. The night before they sailed, Kaelen stood before them, firelight dancing on his face. "You follow me not for silver," he said, his voice carrying in the hall. "Not for cattle, nor women, nor even for glory. You follow me for fire, for the chance to become more than men, to carve our names into the bones of the world. The gods would see us crawl, forgotten. I say we rise. I say we take their fire and burn brighter than they ever dreamed." "Who follows?" There had been silence. Then, slowly, Skari rose, his single eye gleaming. "If it means blood, I follow." Freyja lifted her shield. "If it means fire, I follow." One by one, they had pledged themselves, until at last the hall thundered with the cries of warriors who had nothing left but a chance at immortality. And now they sailed north, into waters choked with fog and haunted by shapes too large to be whales. The first loss came swiftly. A storm rose out of nowhere, blacker than Hell's pit, and the sea raged as if Thor himself smote it with Mjolnir. The Stormfang heaved and cracked, her timbers groaning. A wave higher than a hull crashed across the deck, sweeping two men screaming into the dark. Kaelen roared and clung to the prow, his hands bleeding from the wood, his eyes blazing with fury not fear. "Hold," he bellowed, his voice rising above the storm. "The sea does not take us. We take the sea." His words gave them strength, and they lashed themselves to the ship, riding out the fury of the waves. By dawn, the storm had passed, but the deck was slick with blood and brine. Two men gone, their names carved into memory, their bodies claimed by Ran, goddess of the drowned. Kaelen stood silent as the survivors sang the death song, their voices hoarse, their eyes hollow. He felt the weight of the seeress's words pressing on him. The price is all you love, but he shoved it down, burying it beneath the fire that drove him. Loss was the coin of destiny. He would pay it. Days bled into nights, nights into days, and the sea stretched endless until at last they reached the edge of Jotunheim. Here the land rose jagged and cruel, mountains like the teeth of a great beast, glaciers gleaming in the pale sun. The air itself seemed to burn with frost, and every breath cut like knives in the lungs. They found a village clinging to the coast, its people gaunt and wary, their eyes full of old fear. The Jarl greeted them with suspicion, but when Kaelen spoke of dragons, the man paled and spat on the ground. "There are no dragons," he said too quickly. "They are dead, long dead." Kaelen's eyes narrowed. "Then why does your village reek of fear?" The Jarl said no more, but that night, as they feasted, a crone came to Kaelen, her back bent, her hands shaking. She pressed a small carved talisman into his palm, shaped like a serpent coiled upon itself. "You seek the fire," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I see it in you. But know this, the dragon sleeps in the heart of the mountain. To wake it is to wake doom. The last who sought it never returned. Do not follow." Kaelen closed his hand around the talisman. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with hunger. "I am not the last," he said. The crone wept, but said no more. The next morning, Kaelen and his warriors left the village and struck inland, climbing into the mountains. Snow fell thick, the air grew thin, and the world turned white and silent. They marched for days, their beards crusted with ice, their bellies empty. One man froze in the night, his body stiff by dawn. Another slipped on the ice and broke his neck, his skull cracking against the rocks. The mountain took what it wished. But Kaelen pressed on, his eyes fixed always on the peaks where he knew the fire waited. At last they came to a cavern, its mouth gaping like the jaws of a beast. Warmth pulsed from within, strange and unnatural in that frozen land. Kaelen felt it on his skin, thrumming in his bones. "This is it," he whispered. His warriors looked at him with fear, but none turned away. They followed him into the dark. The cavern wound deep, lit by veins of glowing stone. The air grew hot, thick with the stink of sulfur. And then, at last, they saw it, sleeping coiled in the heart of the mountain, scales black as obsidian, wings vast as sails, its breath rumbling like distant thunder. The dragon. Kaelen's heart stopped in his chest. Never had he beheld such a thing. It was a god made flesh, a terror out of the oldest songs, a fire that had shaped the world. He felt his knees weaken, his breath falter. And yet, beneath the fear, something else burned. Desire. Here was the fire. Here was the crown of kings. Skari gripped his axe tighter, his one eye wide. "We cannot fight this. It will burn us all." Freya's face was pale, but her voice was steady. "If we run now, we run forever. If we fight, we die, but at least we die as warriors." Kaelen lifted his axe. His voice was low, but it carried. "We do not die," he said. "We claim the fire. We become more." The dragon stirred, its vast head lifting, eyes opening, eyes like molten gold, burning with ancient hatred. Its roar shook the mountain, and flame burst from its jaws, lighting the cavern like the sun. And Kaelen, with fire in his heart and nothing left to lose, charged. The cavern became a storm of fire and fury. The dragon's roar split the stone, raining shards from the ceiling. Heat blasted the warriors as if they stood before the sun itself. The flames rolled across the cavern floor, devouring shield and flesh alike. Two men were caught at once, their screams ending in ash, their bones glowing white in the inferno. Kaelen felt the fire lick his face, searing his beard, but he did not flinch. His eyes locked on the beast, and his heart pounded not with fear, but with the wild, impossible certainty that this moment was his. That he was meant to stand here, meant to face this god of flame and shadow. "Hold the line," he bellowed, his voice raw. "Shields. Hold." Freya raised her shield high, bracing as fire washed over it, the wood blackening, the iron rim glowing red. Skari roared, swinging his axe as if he could cleave the flames themselves. Asmund stumbled, his young face pale with terror, but Kaelen seized him by the shoulder and shoved him behind. The dragon reared, its wings unfurling, vast as the cavern itself, and with a single beat it sent a hurricane of wind and dust blasting through the hall. Its eyes blazed, and Kaelen felt them burn into him, not as a man, but as prey. And yet, beneath the fury in that gaze, Kaelen thought he glimpsed something else. Recognition, as if the beast saw not just a man, but something waiting to become more. Kaelen's grip tightened on his axe. "Now," he roared. The warriors surged. Skari leapt forward, his axe burying in the dragon's leg, sparks flying as steel bit scale. Freya darted to the side, her spear stabbing between the plates of armor at its belly. Arrows clattered from the shadows as the others loosed shafts, their cries echoing against stone. The dragon roared, its tail whipping like a thunderclap. It struck a man and sent him flying into the cavern wall, his body shattering like a doll. It lashed again, crushing another beneath its weight. The ground shook with every movement, every breath. Kaelen charged. His axe blazed in the firelight as he swung at the beast's forelimb, his strike echoing like the toll of a great bell. Scale cracked, black blood spraying, hissing as it struck the stone. The dragon's roar shook his bones, and fire spewed forth once more, engulfing the cavern. Kaelen fell to one knee, raising his shield. The flames clawed at him, blistering his skin, searing his flesh. His shield burned away, leaving only the iron boss clutched in his hand. His vision blurred, the heat clawing at his soul. But in that fire, he saw something. A vision. He saw himself crowned not with gold, but with flame. He saw his clan rising from ashes, their banners blazing with dragon sigils, their enemies broken, their names sung for 1,000 years. He saw himself, vast and terrible, a king not just of men, but of fire, a god who ruled the skies and seas alike. And beneath it, he heard a voice, vast and whispering, echoing in his blood. Take it, take the fire, claim what is yours. Kaelen roared, shoving back the flame, rising once more. His axe gleamed, and with a cry that split the cavern, he hurled himself at the dragon's throat. The axe bit deep, cutting between the scales, sinking into flesh. Black fire blood poured forth, searing his arms, his chest, but he did not release his grip. The dragon thrashed, its wings battering stone, its roar shattering the air. Warriors screamed, crushed beneath falling rock, burned to ash in the flames. Skari leapt to Kaelen's side, driving his axe deeper. Freya stabbed with her spear, her face grim and resolute. Together they fought like those already dead, with nothing left but rage and will. At last, with a final roar that shook the mountain itself, the dragon collapsed. Its body struck the cavern floor like a mountain falling, and the fire dimmed, the air thick with smoke and ash. Kaelen staggered, his hands burned raw, his body broken, but his eyes fixed on the wound in the beast's chest. There, beneath scale and bone, pulsed a light, red, burning, alive. The heart of the dragon. The voice whispered again, "Take it. Become what you were meant to be." Kaelen fell to his knees beside the wound. His warriors gathered what strength they had, their faces pale, their numbers fewer. Half were gone, burned or crushed, their names already being carried to the gods. Freya caught his arm. "Kaelen, stop. This is not ours. This is not meant for men." His gaze turned to her, and for a moment his eyes softened. She was right. This was not meant for men. But he was no longer just a man. He pulled free his axe, and with one last strike, cleaved open the dragon's chest. Flame burst forth, searing all around. The warriors fell back, shielding their eyes. And there, blazing like the sun, was the heart of the beast, vast and terrible. Kaelen reached into the fire. His flesh burned, his skin blackened, his bones seared. But he did not cry out. He gripped the heart in both hands, lifted it high, and as the flames poured into him, he roared. The cavern shook. The fire did not consume him. It entered him, filled him, burned away everything he had been. His eyes blazed, his skin glowed, his breath came like smoke. His warriors fell silent, watching in terror and awe as Kaelen stood transformed, his silhouette burning in the glow. The dragon's body fell still, its fire gone. The cavern dimmed, but Kaelen stood tall, his chest heaving, his eyes burning like molten gold. He turned to his warriors, his voice no longer just a man's, but something deeper, vaster, echoing with fire. "The age of men is ending," he said. "The age of fire begins. I am Kaelen Bjornsson no longer. I am Dragon King." His warriors bowed, some willingly, some in fear. Freya's eyes filled with tears, not of joy, but of sorrow, for she saw not a man risen, but a man lost. And in the shadows of the cavern, unseen by all, a raven perched on a stone, its black eyes gleaming. It croaked once and flew into the dark. The Norns were watching. The price was yet to be paid. The climb down from the mountain was slower, heavier, though not for the weight of their packs. Each man and woman who survived bore something heavier still, the memory of what they had seen and the shadow of the man who had once been Kaelen Bjornsson. He walked before them, no longer as a man walks, but as something half otherworldly. His steps struck the earth like drumbeats. Heat shimmered around him, his breath steaming even in the bitter wind. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark, twin embers that smoldered with an unnatural fire. The dragon's heart beat now within his chest, and with each pulse the world seemed to bow before him. They descended into the village on the fjord below, and the people fell to their knees at the sight of him. Fear cracked their voices, yet some whispered prayers, thinking perhaps a god had come among them. Kaelen's gaze swept the huts, the starving faces, the broken walls. "No more shall we bow," he said, his voice carrying like thunder. "No more shall we starve. No more shall we fear raiders and kings. Fire is ours now. The age of ash is ended. I bring a new age. My age." Some cheered, some wept. Others fled to their huts in silence. That night, as they feasted on the last stores of the village, Kaelen sat apart, staring into the fire. The flames bent toward him, as if drawn to their new master. Freya sat beside him, her face stern. "You burned for it," she said. "You bled for it. But tell me, Kaelen, what are you now? A man? Or something less?" He turned to her, and his smile was a blade. Something more. But her eyes did not soften. She saw the truth. In gaining the fire, Kaelen had lost something greater, the warmth that had once made him a man. The days that followed were filled with war. Kaelen led raids against the Skaalen raiders who had once hunted his clan. Where he went, fire followed. His axe blazed with searing light, and no shield could stand against it. Villages burned, enemies fled or fell, and word spread like wildfire. The Dragon King rises. Clans that once mocked the Bjorn name now bent the knee. Kaelen's hall grew full once more. His clan swelled with warriors eager to bask in his fire. The banners of the Bjorn flew across the seas, dragons painted in red and gold. But for every victory, there was loss. On the raid against the Skaalen stronghold, young Asmund was cut down. His voice, so eager, silenced forever. Kaelen carried his body to the pyre himself, but as the flames took the boy, no tears came to his eyes. They had burned away. Skari fell soon after, struck down in single combat with a rival Jarl's champion. Kaelen avenged him, splitting the man in two with a blow that set the earth alight. But when he returned to camp, he sat alone, staring at his hands. They shook, though not from weakness, from the weight of all he was losing. Freya came to him again, her voice low. "How many must fall, Kaelen? How many before you see the truth? You seek to be Dragon King, but you are forging a throne of bones." He looked at her, his eyes glowing, his face hard. "Every king sits upon bones. At least mine shall be worthy." Still she did not yield. Still she fought by his side. But sorrow lingered in her gaze, a shadow he could not burn away. In time, Kaelen's power grew too great to ignore. The Jarls of the North gathered against him, forming a great alliance. They swore by Odin's spear and Thor's hammer that the Dragon King would not be allowed to rise. They met Kaelen's host on the shores of a wide bay, banners snapping, shields gleaming. The clash was thunder. Axes split skulls, spears shattered bone, arrows darkened the sky. Kaelen strode through the melee like fire given form, his axe a streak of light, his roar shaking the hearts of men. The allied Jarls fell one by one, their champions broken, their warriors scattered. Kaelen's victory was total. The sea ran red, the beach littered with corpses. But amid the carnage, Freya was struck down. Kaelen found her on the field, her shield splintered, her breast pierced by a spear. She looked up at him with fading eyes, blood at her lips. "You are king now," she whispered. "But tell me, who mourns you?" And then she was gone. For the first time since Torvald's death, Kaelen's knees buckled. He fell beside her, the roar torn from his throat not of rage, but of grief, a sound so raw it silenced even the crows. The fire within him blazed, but it gave no warmth. It seared his soul, leaving only emptiness. That night, the warriors feasted in victory, but Kaelen did not join them. He stood alone at the edge of the bay, watching the waves crash black and cold. The dragon's heart beat within him, strong, relentless, but for the first time he felt its chains. Power had been gained, but love, kinship, humanity, they were ash. The ravens circled above, croaking once before vanishing into the night. The Norn's web was tightening. The years that followed were marked by fire and iron. Kaelen Bjornsson, Dragon King of the North, ruled from his hall by the fjord, its roof carved with dragons anew, its hearth burning so bright that men swore they could see its glow from leagues across the sea. His banner flew over villages once hostile, his ships prowled the waters like wolves, and his name was spoken with awe and dread. But though his power grew, the fire within him never rested. The dragon's heart beat in his chest, demanding more. It was not a gift, it was a hunger, and Kaelen fed it with war. He struck east, raiding Saxon shores. He struck south, clashing with rival Jarls who dared defy him. Each victory brought him silver, land, and warriors. Yet with each battle, more of his kin fell. Men who had laughed with him in the mead hall now lay beneath stone cairns. Women who had sung the death songs now wept in silence. And still the fire burned. The people began to call him not only king, but god. Some built shrines of dragon-shaped stone, offerings of blood and gold left at his feet. Yet others whispered that he was cursed, that his fire was not the blessing of the gods, but their mockery. For no man could wield such power without tearing the world apart. It was then that the gods themselves could no longer ignore him. One night, as Kaelen sat alone in the hall, the flames bent strangely, twisting in the hearth. From them stepped a figure cloaked in shadow, one eye gleaming like cold steel. "Odin," Kaelen said, his voice low. The All-Father regarded him with a gaze sharp as a spear. "You have risen far, Kaelen Bjornsson. Too far. Fire belongs to the gods, not to men. You carry what was never yours to bear." Kaelen's hand clenched his axe. It was mine to take. The wyrms fire was abandoned, left to rot in the dark. If the gods meant to guard it, they failed. I claimed it. By right of blood and battle, it is mine. Odin's voice was calm, yet beneath it rumbled thunder. "You would set yourself against the gods?" Kaelen's eyes blazed. "I set myself above them." The hall shook with Odin's laughter, though no joy lay in it. "Then your path is clear. You shall burn, and all you love shall burn with you." The fire collapsed into ash, and Odin was gone. From that night, Kaelen knew war with the gods was inevitable. He gathered his warriors, those who still lived, those who still believed. They looked at him with fear, but also with loyalty, for he was their king, and though his eyes burned like molten gold, he was the last hope of the Bjorn clan. Together, they prepared for war not of men, but of gods. The first to come was Thor, Stormbringer, bearer of Mjolnir. He descended upon the coast with lightning in his wake, his hammer flashing brighter than the sun. Kaelen met him on the shore. The sea boiled, the sky split, and men cowered as the Dragon King and Thunder God clashed. Kaelen's axe blazed, fire against lightning, sparks searing the heavens. Thor laughed as he struck, each blow shaking the earth, but Kaelen roared louder still, his fire burning hotter than the storm. For 3 days and nights they fought, neither yielding. At last, Kaelen struck a blow that seared Thor's arm, forcing the god to retreat, his laughter fading into thunderclouds. The men cheered, but Kaelen felt no joy. For every god he defied, another loss followed. That same night, plague struck his hall. The children sickened first, then the elders, then the warriors. Half his people were taken in a fortnight, their bodies piled high, their songs turned to silence. Kaelen burned their corpses himself, the fire licking his hands, his eyes hollow. Still the ravens circled, black against the gray sky. Then came Freya, goddess of beauty and war, weeping not for him, but for what he had become. She stood in his hall, her hair like gold, her eyes like the sea. "Kaelen, you are doomed," she said. "But there is still a choice. Cast away the fire. Let it die with you. Spare your people." His gaze met hers, hard as iron. "If I die, all that I have built dies with me. I will not fade into ash. I will burn eternal." She wept, and when she vanished, the air stank of roses turned to rot. Kaelen grew colder as the years bled into one another. His victories turned hollow, his halls emptier, his warriors fewer. Those who had once called him savior now looked upon him with fear. He had won all he sought: fire, power, kingship, but the warmth of life had slipped from him. On the last night of winter, he stood upon the cliffs, the sea roaring below, the fire within his chest beating like a war drum. He raised his axe, and flames curled from it, reaching for the stars. "Gods of Asgard," he bellowed, "if you would end me, come. But know this, I will not kneel. I am Kaelen Bjornsson, Dragon King, and I will burn until the world is ash." His voice carried across sea and sky, a challenge that shook the bones of the world. The raven landed on the cliff beside him, tilting its head. Its eyes gleamed like midnight, and in them he saw the threads of the Norn's loom. The web was nearly woven. The end was coming. The winter that followed was the darkest Kaelen Bjornsson had ever known. Snow fell ceaselessly, burying fields, suffocating forests, choking rivers beneath ice. Wolves prowled the edges of villages, gaunt and fearless. Men starved, women withered, children wasted away, and still, the fire in his chest burned. Kaelen had become a living pyre. His hair had long since turned white as bone, his beard streaked with ash, his skin marked by veins of flame. Men whispered he was no longer mortal, that he was a vessel of the wyrm itself, a beast wearing a man's flesh. Yet his eyes still wept when he passed the cairns of his people, so many now that the hills were made of stone and bone. One night, the raven returned. It landed on the scorched post of the longhouse and stared at him with its cold black gaze. "It is time," it croaked. Kaelen's breath steamed in the frozen air. "Time for what?" "For the ending you have forged." The raven beat its wings, and the world darkened. The stars vanished. The moon cracked. The ground split, and from the chasm rose a shadow vast as mountains. It was Níðhöggr, the corpse dragon of the roots of Yggdrasil. Its scales were rot and darkness, its breath the stench of centuries. Eyes like bottomless pits fixed on Kaelen, and the fire within him flared in answer. "You," the wyrm hissed, its voice the grinding of tombstones. "You who stole the fire, you who dare call yourself king, your soul burns bright, but it is mine to devour." Kaelen lifted his axe, runes glowing, flames curling along its edge. His voice thundered across the frozen world. "I am Kaelen Bjornsson, last of my clan, Dragon King by blood and fire. I do not kneel. If you would take me, beast, then choke on the blaze." The wyrm's roar split the heavens. They clashed upon the ice, fire against shadow, the wyrm's breath freezing seas, Kaelen's fire boiling them anew. The sky cracked. Mountains fell. The world shook with the fury of their battle. Kaelen fought like a man who had nothing left but fire. He struck again and again, each blow tearing scale, searing bone. The wyrm's claws raked his flesh, his blood spilled, yet each drop ignited into flame upon the ground. Hours became days, days became nights, the battle unending. At last, Kaelen fell to one knee. The wyrm loomed over him, maw gaping, ready to consume not only his flesh but his very soul. In that moment, he thought of his father's hall, now ash. He thought of the laughter of his children, silenced. He thought of his wife's song, carried away by wind. All that he had lost, all that he had fought to preserve, flickered before him like sparks in the dark. And he understood. The fire was never his to keep. It was his to spend. With a roar that split the sky, Kaelen drove his axe into his own chest, piercing the heart where the wyrm's fire dwelled. Flame erupted, brighter than the sun, a torrent that engulfed him and the corpse dragon alike. The wyrm screamed as its rot burned, as its shadow dissolved into ash. The fire of Kaelen's soul consumed it utterly, searing the darkness from the roots of the world. The blaze rose higher, consuming the heavens, until nothing remained but silence. When the smoke cleared, the ice was gone. The fjord shone anew, its waters gleaming like glass. Forests stirred with green shoots, fields thawed, the air sweet with spring. The land was reborn, but Kaelen was gone. Only his axe remained, buried in the cliff above the fjord, its runes still faintly glowing. His people, few though they were, came to that place. They built no cairn, for no stone could contain the Dragon King. Instead, they built a shrine of flame, a pyre that never died, its fire fed by their remembrance. And so Kaelen Bjornsson, last of the Bjorn clan, was remembered not as a cursed man nor a tyrant, but as the one who gave all to save his people. They sang of him not as king, nor god, but as the Dragon King, the man who burned so the world could live.